Yeah, that's the do you have clothing on disclaimer.
Oops. All right. Well, we're ready, and I need to go to here.
Are we live?
We're live.
Welcome to the show. You're listening to the Wow Pod. I'm Betsy.
Yes, we're back. I'm Jared, and well, it's the final episode
Spooky
before
season.
Halloween. This October has kicked us right directly in the brown eye.
That's true. It's true.
It's kicked us hard.
I concur. Yes.
But with any luck, we can.
We're going to finish strong.
Yeah, we can have a fun show. And we're going to talk about that quintessential. Betsy's got some stories. That quintessential, magical moment that is, or magical being that is witches.
Witches.
No, I just want to go through a real quick rundown of what I learned many moons ago about how a witch is made according to ancient Christianity.
Hi, King. Welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up, man? So,
how a witch is made?
Yes, how they become a witch.
Okay, I'm ready.
Now, they, of course, join a group of girls.
Okay,
or
check.
Fellow ladies.
Check.
And they go out to the woods and do their sacred dances and
okay.
Rituals and stuff.
Got it.
And then Satan is summoned in the form of a goat.
A goat.
Yes.
We've talked about...
all that stuff is pretty easy to deal with. I could be a witch. No problem.
Until this point?
Until this point.
Okay, the turning point is... this is why men haven't got it in them to finish this
have it
ritual.
in you either.
Okay, tell me.
You must lift the goat's tail.
No.
And kiss it right on the little rusty balloon knot.
No.
Yeah.
That's the only way to be a witch?
Well, that's what I read somewhere, and I laughed my butt off thinking, yeah. Probably why not every woman's a witch? Because the other stuff sounds kind of fun.
You like dancing.
Go out to the wood, kick up a fire,
lady
dance
friends.
around, make some good smelling stuff. Maybe
the whole
wheel out
kissing the
cauldron.
old balloon knot is too far.
And then the crescendo. And how many of those ladies that gathered out there under false pretenses went, yeah, I'm going home.
Yeah, I didn't sign up for this, Bernice.
Is it worth being able to cruise around on the broom?
So King says, it's scary you came up with this subject because I found out a while back my front neighbor is an actual witch from Mexico. Okay.
Oh.
So, do you think, King, that she kissed the balloon knot?
Now,
when you look at her, can you look at her ever again and not think that? That's the question. So, from now on, when you see her, you're going to see a vision of the tail being lifted and her coming in hot.
Well, I've got a question. Okay, bruja. I've got to look up what a bruja is.
Bruja. Close. But bruja.
From Mexico.
From Mexico.
Bruja. Brujas. Oh, okay.
Ooh, bruja or brujo in witchcraft. Ooh.
We're going to... All right. The picture it shows is a classic witch. Where do you get the human skull for the desk? Okay.
Amazon. We've talked about this.
I haven't found a real human skull on Amazon.
We don't know if that's a real one or if she just like decoupaged it or...
Decoupage. How do you say that in witch language? Anyways, you may occasionally hear the word bruja or brujo used in discussions about magic and witchcraft.
So it's someone who practices...
these words are Spanish
within a cultural context.
And used in many Spanish-speaking cultures in Latin America and the Caribbean to refer to people who are practitioners of witchcraft. Bruja with the at the end is the female variation.
Brujo. There are men that make it through this.
What's up, Brujo? That just sounds cool. Dude, I mean, how many dudes would sign up just because they get a cool name, Brujo?
A brujo.
Yeah.
So in general, it's considered a negative term. The practice of brujeria, which is a form of folk magic.
Okay.
It involves charms, love curses, hexes. We've met some brujas.
Some brujeria.
Some of our paranormal girls do
Oh, yeah.
hexes and love spells and
Oh,
things
yeah.
like that.
It sounds like it's neo-pagan, so like a Wiccan number. It doesn't, Cinneret. Read that for
Syncretic.
me. Thank you. Blend of folklore, traditional herbalism, and Catholicism. That reminds me of voodoo.
Yeah, a little bit.
That is
A little bit a mix of this, some of this, some of
that's a
that.
mix of Catholicism and their African religions that they brought over in like Haiti and South America, and they came up with voodoo.
There you go.
Another cool name. They take all the best names. Oh, and we got Bruja feminism. I'm going to have to dig into this at a later date.
We should do a whole show on brujas.
Yes. Yes. I found out that she has... Okay, King again. I found out that she has been doing black magic on the whole neighborhood, but mostly me and my family.
King?
100%. And it's over us being in a better economic... Oh, so she's
jealous.
Trying to steal your sunshine, like that song in the 90s said. Lori said, hooray, I made it live. Thank you.
Hi, Lori.
We're glad
Welcome.
you made it. King says, she has an evil aura, and I got sick from looking at her one time. I got a fever and almost had to go to the ER. Man.
It's crazy because I became a born-again Christian. She and her son began relentlessly on the attacks. She has done to me, but she can't touch my mother. She's in God's grace. So this is the question. Is brujas, witches, warlocks, are they in opposition of Christianity and the light, or some claim to practice light magic, and are they in the favor of the light, the source, the being, your God? So
I know the ones that we have on here. Most of them say that they do
light magic.
They make like spells that are happy and lovely
and protective spells from bad witches and things like that.
Yeah, and the little spell jars like Moon.
We tried a love potion with you.
Yeah, that works.
It seems to be working.
We'll see.
Maybe you should.
I'm gonna screw this up.
Insert it. Did it come with instructions?
Put it in the. We should just start
put it
calling
in the
it
old rusty balloon knot.
We ought to just call it the Devil's Kiss.
So
here, little.
You're terrible. Okay, so King says there's no such thing as a good witch. They're all evil and try to separate us from Christ. That is a common thought.
But then you get like Sarah. Sarah is a Catholic, practicing, does all the stuff, religious.
So is Sarah, if you're listening, we must know.
Also,
are you actually a good
But she wouldn't call
witch?
herself a witch.
She doesn't. Are you a good witch, or do you just think you are?
See, and then you hear, I mean, I don't know.
So let's go with history of what was considered a witch.
I think maybe have you kissed the bum?
Okay, that's how we know.
Have you earned the devil's lipstick?
Disgusting.
Yeah, like, the devil,
it's
I mean,
yellowish brown.
It puts a twist on him. Like he's evil, but he's evil.
He's next level.
He's like, yeah, they want to do what? All right, I got something for him.
That's right. This is your only way. This is the entry. The price must be paid.
The entry.
So let's talk about...
Hey, no Frenching. I didn't sign up for that.
So let's talk about what was considered witchcraft. What was considered witchcraft when this all kind of started to boil up. So things like creating poultices. So with herbs.
Okay, poultices.
Yes.
You're going to throw out a word and not explain it to me and just leave me and I'm sure everyone else in the dark. Hey, lady, Capera?
Welcome.
Capera Ankh. Is that correct? Did I
think
say all that
you're
right?
close enough.
Hey, greetings to you. Happy Halloween on Monday. I hope everyone, I just want to take a minute, man. This is the best time of the year. It's getting a little colder, although here in Utah right now it thinks it's mid-February, but it's getting a little colder.
A little chill in the air.
The kids are going to be running around in costumes. Happiest day.
Yeah.
I love Halloween.
Yeah, coming up fast.
It's quick, it's in, it's out. It's nothing but laughs and sugar. I mean, the next day, the 1st, nausea, everyone's feeling sluggish. But the 31st, game time.
Yeah.
All right, so go on.
So a poultice is where they would grind up specific roots, fruits, or vegetables and create a paste. Mm-hmm. And that paste would be put onto your body to pull out, that's why they call it a poultice, pull out infection, viruses. If you got a fever, they would make a poultice with onion skins and they would put it on your forehead. And it was declared.
Do they work?
Well, Mom used them on me.
Yeah.
I mean, just as recent as my childhood. So
do we need to, I mean, Mom's no longer with us, but.
She was a witch.
Do you
I don't know if she kissed the rusty knot.
Then she wasn't a full witch. She would have been witch light or, witch-ish.
Right, witch light.
Witch adjacent. But now hold on. Okay.
But that was considered in the beginning to be witchcraft.
In some areas it may have been, but I mean, like you've got aspirin is naturally, its natural form is an underbark of a tree, like not the hard bark on the outside, but like the squishy stuff underneath that before you get to the wood.
Mm-hmm.
It's, what tree is it again? Yeah, just make something up. Not an oak, but something else.
Well, ibuprofen was derived from pineapples, the enzyme found in pineapples.
See?
The anti-inflammatory effects it has.
I'm telling you.
And we got penicillin from mold.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's got a whole generational family of bacteria behind it. And those things fight inflammation. So I'm sure that as they made these things, I mean, humans have been around for a spell, and they probably tried rubbing all sorts of stuff on themselves when they didn't feel good. I mean, imagine you're a cave mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your husband, he's over there watching, Gronk, paint on a wall and not paying attention to cave baby crying, and you're trying everything. Toothaches. Mom used to use that clove on your teeth when it hurt.
There it is.
So, okay, a poultice.
Yep. So poultices were one of the things that was considered witchcraft. Another thing that was considered witchcraft was like being angry with and cursing at someone. If they then fell ill anytime in the future beyond that, you had cursed them.
I need to
Not
make a lot of
them
apologies real quick, folks. I've been awful cursy at times in my life.
Yes. Clearly a
I've
warlock.
said some things that I shouldn't have said, and asked people if they had sand in places they shouldn't have had. And,
it's true. It's true.
And if any of them get sick, I apologize. All right.
So this has been relegated and kind of worked out in different cultures based on a timeline. And that timeline generally starts when religion gets into power of some kind, which is interesting to me because I don't believe anywhere else more so than religion that the power of prayer and, in our case, the fasting and things like that are so relied upon as a form of healing.
As you all know, I'm a dedicated faster.
Yeah.
Just throw it out there.
Yes. So
dedicated.
The first question becomes is there such a thing as an actual witch, or is this a construct that we give to people who practice their religion in a different way than we do?
Well, I do know that when Christianity came around, a lot of the practices of, you go into much deeper, prolonged Jared's brain of useless information. There was the religion of Mithras at the same time as when Christianity first came around. So you had Mithras was kind of the erudite religion. And then you had the paganism was kind of a slowly dying out religion, but it had a lot of historical context, and it still stuck around with like your politicians and your ultra wealthy people. They also had another religion that was mixed in there where it was kind of mixed in with an ancestor worship. And then you had Christianity, which was making its way through the slaves and the lower class at the same time. And it appears that there was a bit of a mix that came through with Mithras and Christianity because of the military, because that's a place where erudite and peasants, for lack of a better word, mixed.
Okay.
And
I'm really trying to keep up.
I know. And the Mithras religion also shunned practices of paganism and ancestor worship.
Okay.
So in ancient Rome, you would have a room that was dedicated to your ancestors, and usually only the patriarch had this room, and they operated like a mafia crime family. And in this room, it'd be face masks of
your ancestors,
your dead ancestors.
Terrifying.
Would be hanging all over the wall, like on cupboards, whatever. And you'd go in and pray to them for strength to keep the family strong, keep the family together.
Okay.
And then beneath them, they all had slaves. The slaves were Christian. The peasants just above them were Christian. And then the erudite, the military officer class and the equestrians had the Mithraic religion, which mirrored Christianity in a lot of ways.
Okay.
And they, and then those two mingled in the military.
There it is.
So it's kind of they're just discovering this stuff now. Constantine's mound you're just barely allowed to go up there. So I've been digging a lot of stuff on that up.
Just tucking it away in your information vault.
I know I shouldn't.
So we think, so that's the very first question we have to pose. Because
Lady Kafara Ankh, Kapara.
Just lady. We're going to shorten it to just lady.
Okay.
For your sake.
Willow bark, and it's called salicin. And I have a willow tree in my front yard, and dogs, when they're injured, will go and chew the willow tree.
There it is.
Yeah. Anyways.
So the first question we have to ask is, do you believe that there are witches, actual witches, or do you think that this is a construct that was created that has now become a line of thought or a practice? And that is an interesting question. So we'll save that for the last. But anyone who thinks that witchcraft and its subsequent trials belong only to our past and in our imaginations need to think again. Tens of thousands of people were executed between the 15th and 18th centuries.
Yeah. We've
And
talked about a handful of them on here.
it was an age of ignorance and intolerance. And here's one story.
And Protestantism showing up when there was Catholics. We know there was a lot of people murdered on both sides with the claim that the other one was a witch. And it looks like they were targeted because they were either Catholic or Protestant.
Yep. So this is India, October 2009.
Okay.
5 women were accused of causing harm. So causing harm not through means that you could see, but causing harm through witchcraft means.
Okay.
And they were, and this is, of course, is bolstered because even in 2009 in India, they have local witch finders and a cleric to deal with witches. So we're talking 2009. A mob is gathered together, and they dragged these 5 women out. They were stripped and beaten almost to death. Local authorities had to bring in artillery and military to disband this crowd and save these 5 women.
What religion are we talking about here? What part of India were they in?
Jharkhand.
Where is that?
Within
the borders of India.
Yeah, within the
obviously.
borders
It's
of
south
India.
of China, east of Afghanistan, the place. Well, some of India is still predominantly Muslim. Some is Hindi, some is Sikh, and some is Christian.
Yeah.
I would like to know which one it was, because that would probably affect the different witchcraftery, coin that phrase, that was being used at the time. Because like you talk about Palo Mayombe, if that doesn't work, how do they keep that going?
Yeah.
The minute they say dig up a grave, I'm really questioning whether the wealth I'm going to gain from that hand I bury at my front door is worth it. I might rather live poor.
Yeah.
Because that's
Honestly.
a scene that you don't wash off.
No. So the history of witchcraft, although started a really long time ago, European witches of the 16th century were being, killed at large. There were mobs of people that were charged with finding them and hanging them in the streets. So although it does go back a long ways, it is still very much in our recent past. This phenomenon is just literally riddled with powerful myths. I would say that perhaps the rusty brown balloon knot is a myth, but if we view this in a context of time, space, population levels, it's clear that even though so many people were killed in these witch trials, they were rare enough that they were allowed to continue and are allowed to continue today.
It didn't affect the noble people.
Yeah.
The minute it got to where it affected a nobleman, like people who are studying the Salem witch trials, that's what shut them down. Is they started pointing the finger at the community leaders, the mayor and governor's wives, and then they went. First time they pointed a finger at a boss's wife, and they went, "Not move along." So they moved along. Second time they said, "Yeah," and they shut it down. First of all, the religion they were part of, the Puritans, didn't allow for it. So that shut them down.
So 2010, the Witchcraft and Human Rights Information Network was established in the UK.
What?
It is devoted to this day to alleviating the crisis of witchcraft trials in developing countries.
So they're
There's an entire network.
Oh, hold on. There's still witchcraft trials?
Yes.
Like tying them to a log and throwing them in the river.
Yep.
Lighting them on fire.
Africa, India, Southeast Asia, all still have witch hunting.
Africa?
Active witch hunting and witch trials.
Paulo Mayambe is still alive in Africa. What was it, 3 years ago they killed that boy to take his arm? Right? So
yeah,
keep hunting them witches. India, what's that, what's the god's name that, what's the Indian sex book?
Oh, the Kama Sutra?
Yes. And then the god you worship in the Kama Sutra is,
Yes.
I don't know, we'll call it Kama or Sutra, whatever. That one, I think it was something like 6 years ago, they were sacrificing people to that god because that god of, you know, brown chicken, brown cow.
brown chicken, brown cow.
That god demands human sacrifice.
Yes.
And that was like
not that long ago.
Within our lifetimes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here in the States, we often think of the most famous witch trials of Salem.
Of course.
However, what Salem witch trials, how many? 19 were executed?
Yeah.
14 women and 5 men?
Yep.
The witch trials in
England. And much more
England
were just put on trial and had all their stuff taken because they gave up. There's that one guy who they stacked the rocks on the door that was on him, and he just, when they said confess, he said more rocks or more weight.
Yeah.
That dude's a badass.
He's kind of a badass.
He is. Lady says, and the Jains, Agoris in India. Now, you've got Jainism. Is that what you're talking about, lady? Jainism, the ones that it's a hand is their religious symbol, and they're supposedly super peaceful. Like they don't even step on bugs and stuff. Just, you know, I mean, I consider you a witch if you let the spider live in your house. There's a severe problem with that. You know. I mean,
So just prior to the witch trials in Salem, about 30 years. So not like 2 months, but about 30 years prior, there are active witch trials in England that are estimated to have resulted in the death of 1,000 people.
wow.
So we have 19, and in about 4 years in England, we have 1,000 people.
So they're knocking the bottom out of 250 people a year. So they're clocking in, you know, what, a person every 2.5 days?
Yeah.
No, that's less than that.
Person every 1.5 days.
Yeah, person every day and a half. Sometimes, you know, there's a leap year in there. We got to throw in 2 extra. And, I mean,
It's crazy.
don't let me do math.
90% of them were women. And
As you do.
this is like the Puritan era of the mid-17th century. So witch trials are known to have occurred in England during the Middle Ages. The cases were few, mainly concerned cases towards people of the elite or with ties to the elite, often for political purposes. Examples of these, Eleanor Cobham and Marjorie Jourdamain in 1441. Mostly then, though, it resulted in lifetime imprisonment and not often torture and execution. It was like an escalation.
Though back then, I imagine
Lifetime,
what they
that
called,
is torture.
What we call
Yes.
torture, they would call, you know, Thursday.
Yeah, true.
I mean, like what they did to that.
We are weak people.
That Peter
compared.
guy when they put him on the wheel and broke him on the wheel and then peeled his skin off with hot pinchers. They would look at waterboarding and go, "You washing his face? What are you doing here?" You know?
So this really picks up. It was rare and it was generally for political reasons. It really picks up with King James.
The guy who wrote the Bible.
So King James
Or the guy who translated the Bible. He didn't write it.
So King James actually kind of kicks this all off in England, putting in some pretty hefty, I would say, what's the word I'm thinking of? Like, not fines, but you had to pay dearly if you were caught or accused of being a witch.
Now, okay, what would happen with the accusation? Would it be, we saw you making a paste of whatever, and then they come and say, yeah, that's a paste. I mean, too much garlic,
So I'm going to tell you a story because this is how things generally went. It was neighbors telling on neighbors.
Obviously.
And in some cases, children were brought before the courts and had to tell on their parents. So there was a really famous trial called the Pendle Witches in 1612. It's one of the most famous. It's like their Salem witch trials. And it was said that these 12 witches were living in Pendle Hill of Lancashire. And how this came about was their daughter, Allison was walking down a path coming back from market. These Pendle witches were impoverished. They lived in an impoverished area of Lancaster. And the daughter at the time was 5 years old, and she was coming home from market. And someone of higher means than her said something to her as they were passing, something derogatory about her smell. I believe that it's recorded that he said you belong in a sty or like a pigsty, something to that effect. And she turned around and cursed him with her finger. And about 100 yards up the road, he fell to his death. Now,
that's some real witchcraft there.
Yeah. So
that's mad cursing skills.
So if we look medically, I mean, if we just logically
I can't
look
even
at
get
this,
a stub toe out of the guys I curse.
Yeah, I know, right? We're bad at this.
There's a lot of stuff you got to do, apparently.
So if we look at this medically, and they've examined this throughout the years, we look at this medically, it could be the guy was said to have been of really old age. He could have had a stroke. Mm-hmm. Now, when he was found, it was recorded by the other townsfolk.
Heart attack, embolism.
It was recorded by the other townsfolk that one side of his face was sagging.
Yep, that's a stroke.
That's a stroke.
But they knew about strokes back then.
No, not really.
Sure they did.
I mean,
strokes have been around.
They knew that something happened, but not after the point of a finger.
Now, they probably thought that the point of the finger brought the stroke on.
There it is.
Never mind the 75 years old and
right.
In 1550, whenever.
So they bring this little girl, a ripe old age of 6 years old, and they collect her. And she's just honest with them. She was like, he told me, he called me a bad name, or he told me I stink, and I just shook my finger at him, but I didn't touch him, and I didn't trip him, and I didn't do anything. I didn't throw anything at him. So she is tucked away with kind of like their political prisoners. And she's held there for several months. Away from her family, away from her community, away from her neighbors. She's held in confinement for several months. And when she is finally brought out again, she goes on to tell this elaborate story about how 12 people in their little community had gathered under the full moon, and that they were witches, and they cast spells, and one of them turned into a dog-like figure, and the dog-like figure was rearing its teeth and gnashing and running around. It's when you read the actual transcripts of what this 6-year-old little girl said, she had been rehearsing this
straight
for
up
the entire time that she was imprisoned. So the witch mob heads out and they go round up all of the people that she said were in this group, this coven, so to speak. And they all go on trial. And one of them happens to be little Allison's mom. And little Allison's mom is sitting before the court, and they stand her up and they say, "Tell us what your mom is." And she repeats this story verbatim. She's a witch, and they gathered under the full moon at the hour of 2:05 a.m.
Kids.
Yeah.
In the
Satanic Panic.
Yeah.
So her mom is convicted and executed along with the rest of the Pendle witches. So they're all convicted and executed. This goes on, and this is just one of hundreds of stories where something happens and someone wants to blame it on something other than natural means, and they find someone to blame it on. Fast forward, little Allison becomes an adult. And in her span of her lifetime, this is still carrying on. And she is accused of being a witch by someone else. In her case, she was imprisoned for the rest of her life because now we're kind of nearing the end of this crazed execution.
They have become enlightened at that time.
The Enlightenment saved the witch trials. So it goes, you can read into this Lancaster Pendle witch cases, and it goes on to be very similar to what we'll discuss in Salem. And that is that particular piece, Pendle Hill in Lancashire, was, it butted up to a very large, very prosperous political figure's property. And he wanted that land.
Just the same thing that happened in Salem.
Yep. So that brings us to Salem. And this, again, just a tiny little snapshot. There are hundreds and thousands of different witch trials that didn't end in execution, that ended instead in torture and imprisonment and banishment and all kinds of things. But to date, it is tens of thousands of people have been killed for being witches. So Salem witch trials happens pretty shortly after the Pendle witch trials and the trials in England, 1692 to 1693. In Salem, more than 200 people were accused, 30 were found guilty, 19 of those were executed. One man, so there were 14 women and 5 men. One other man, Giles Corey, was pressed to death after refusing to enter a plea. That's the guy that says, add another stone.
Yep, add more weight or add another stone.
So Giles Corey, he was an English-born American farmer who was accused of witchcraft along with his wife, Martha. And after
on a side note, we don't get good names like Martha as often as we should anymore.
Yeah, or Miles or Giles or I know.
Those names of the lighthouse captains were, yeah.
So, he refused to enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. He was subjected to pressing in an effort to force him to plead guilty. And he died 3 days. That's how long it took them to kill him. 3 days of torture.
They put a big oak door on top of him, and they would throw stones on it crush him.
Yep.
And what would happen is if he admitted to being a witch, then the magistrate got his land.
Correct.
And by him not admitting, his sons, he had 2 sons, I think, they got to retain the land.
Yep. So, death by pressing was one of the many ways that they tortured these people, because the trial had to come to a specific end in order for the magistrate to collect.
Yeah,
property.
They had to admit they were guilty.
They had to admit to the crime.
If they admitted to it, the magistrate got to keep the land. That was one of his perks.
Yep.
Or payments. And so he wouldn't admit it, and his kids got to keep the land. Now, I've never looked into what happened to his kids after that, but I want to have a real quick news story.
All right, news.
Okay. So this comes from Audi.com, one of my
I like
favorites.
No.
Missing grandma found inside a huge python. A missing grandma vanished after just a walk.
Why, it's got to be a grandma.
Jahara. Good, thank you. 54 went for a walk to collect rubber in a forest near her family home in Jambi, Indonesia. Concerned relatives reported her missing when she didn't return from the jungle. Search parties organized by locals began by searching through the dense woods in the Tanjung Jabung Barat Regency. Soon after, residents and police stumbled upon the 7-meter, a meter's approximately 3 feet.
No,
so
21
foot long python with the grandma inside of its swollen tummy. The mammoth python was spotted with the bulge in its belly in a clearing amongst the trees while hunting for Jahra last Sunday, 2 days after her disappearance. The snake's stomach was sliced open and the worst fears were confirmed. The 50-year-old missing grandma had been swallowed whole by the python. Footage shows the grand's remains as they rotted inside the snake's... Man, why are they using words like this? Well, about that fasting. Might start now. The video also shows her freaked out friends as the giant snake is cornered and its stomach is cut open.
Grandma, not grandma.
It's heinous. That's insane. I don't want to read on anymore because it just gets grosser. But yeah, grandma was eaten by a python.
That's a terrible story.
I wonder how many times that actually happens in, like, say, a year.
Sure.
You know, like places
and
we
they
don't know
find
about.
the snake.
Yeah, or, you know, like pygmies. There's anacondas.
Yeah.
Down in, like, South America.
In the Congo and stuff, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, that's insanity.
So.
That'd be a nightmare to find that, too. And everyone loves grandma.
Everybody loves... Well, some grandmas are not very nice. Maybe she was a mean grandma.
We'll just go off of our grandma.
Our grandma cannot be eaten by a snake.
No, that snake would die of diabetes.
So, most of these witch sightings, witch accusations, witch trials started with things that are unknown. The way they started in Salem is there were a couple of girls that complained of being pinched and pricked with pins, but they could find no physical evidence of any ailment. And they started just accusing people of of being witches and causing this kind of pain. And it's suggested that family feuds, land grabs, the differences between this kind of meshing together of culture and religion really were suggested to be the major cause of all of these witch trials. And because of these, the people had become so polarized that they no longer viewed the people they were accusing as fellow humans.
They were dehumanized.
They were dehumanized and made into be witches.
The other.
So that brings us to today. What does a witch look like in 2022?
As far as I can tell via all the Halloween stuff, witches are either
have an OnlyFans.
Well, that's true. Onlyfeet.com.
Only feet.
Only brooms.
Mm-hmm.
Either they're old crones or they're sensuous young nubile things like that, which is shown in the center of the screen
right. So they're no longer only abhorrent looking, crooked nose, scraggly hair. They've elevated due to, pop culture, movies and otherwise. They've been elevated to a different level.
I would say that's Halloween, because if I was to tell the average 22-year-old girl right now, be an elephant for Halloween, it would be a very scantily clad elephant that showed up. Or if I was to say, what's something, a Grim Reaper. I didn't know the Grim Reaper showed cleavage in upper thigh.
That's right. A nun.
Yeah, a nun. Well,
a
we've
nun.
seen what they done at the nun. Well, like the picture that's up there right now, that Hocus Pocus movie.
Yep.
Where you've got kind of three levels of witches. You've got the young, attractive one, and then you've got kind of the middle one, and then you've got the older one.
Mm-hmm.
So you got like the crone, the mom age, and then the young lady age. But yeah, I back then, I would think that they were a little more controlling of their people, or not their people. The people were more controlling of their attire, but I can't be sure. I don't know. They used to drop handkerchiefs.
It has become much more mainstream, I would say, with the advantages of the internet. I can literally order anything witchcraft.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, Cardboardo would be considered witchcraft, and Hasbro made him.
Yeah.
You can order any kind of accoutrement and just have it shipped right to your door. I think that it's also
the modern day witch is no longer going to the weird shop where you go down the stairs.
Yeah. No, all that's gone. Now you pick it up
at the front door.
Yes.
King says, back to the news story, and the messed up thing, the villagers ate the snake after.
No, they did not. I could have lived my entire life without that.
You're welcome. Lori says, first name Hillary. I believe Hillary is probably the name of the goat. Just saying. King of Wakamundo, the devil has been busy. Look into the mother not allowing their children to watch Hocus Pocus 2. I take her side.
Yeah, there's an entire group of people that believe that the Disney movie Hocus Pocus and Hocus Pocus 2 are casting actual spells into the homes where it is being broadcast.
Now, what about the witches like on Harry Potter?
Again, we have sensationalized witchcraft to, I mean, I don't know if you could pick out a real witch and a not real witch anymore, because everybody's a witch.
Monday night they will be.
Monday night, everybody will be a witch.
Be lots of witches. You used to cruise around as a witch a lot when we were little.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's a girl costume,
I was
Halloween.
always a vampire. You were always a witch.
Yep.
But it was a simple, easy costume that
hat.
Back then
cloak.
they didn't buy us costumes.
Yeah.
Back then your costume was made, so
Yeah.
was
So it was easy.
many moons ago, back in the dark ages, pictures were sepia tone. It was all that stuff.
So I would argue that witchcraft and witches are in the eye of the beholder, and that some people believe that people who commune with the dead, like psychics, are
Yes.
practicing witchcraft.
Well, it says right in the Bible, don't do it.
Some people believe...
It might be in Deuteronomy.
Dude.
It's my favorite book.
Some people believe that those who practice other religious rituals, whether they be Catholic or Mormon or whatever, are actually practicing a level of witchcraft.
Well, yeah, and
So one person's witchcraft is another person's religion.
How is it that it's insane when you think about at certain times that people judge the people that practice the religion their grandparents practiced
Yeah.
are witches. That's wild when you piece it together in your mind.
Yeah. So the question is there such a thing as a real witch?
Well, I do believe there is.
You do?
But I don't know if I believe all witches are evil.
But do you believe that they have powers?
I don't know. But I think they do, and they put focus into stuff and do stuff. Look, let me ask you this. If I say I want to become a faster runner.
Okay.
So every night I
lift the tail.
I focus on that. I pray about that.
Right.
I gather around a cauldron and put in stuff that I know is going to give me magical energy for that, which is probably, a little bit of cocaine.
Methamphetamine.
Yeah. I think that not magic, but I think the focus on that and my concentration being on that will move towards it coming to pass.
It will reap some dividends.
Yes.
Is that witchcraft?
I don't know. Is that what witches are doing? Or are they doing something different? Like, where do you get an eye of a newt?
Amazon. We've talked about this.
Or dragon's blood. I'm going to look at Amazon right now.
Eye of newt.
I'm looking it up right now.
So that's the question. And I think that that's been the age-old question, because we all want to fight things that are actually evil. However, we also want to recognize that what is considered evil today by those of us who are pure of mind, those roles could quite easily be reversed in the not-so-distant future, and likely have been reversed in the not-so-distant past. So I don't know if I believe that there are actual witches.
If there is, they must harvest their own eyes. I'm seeing toys.
I also would have to level that with my belief that my higher power is stronger than whatever this witchy power they have. So perhaps it's easy for me to dissuade the idea that there are actual witches because I'm protected. Because I don't believe that I could be hurt by an actual witch. Now, I've never had the experience of such. So perhaps there is this really dark, malevolent force that I, with my rose-colored glasses, skipping through life, am just not noticing. Could be totally true. Could be totally true.
That makes you wonder. I don't know. I mean, do I think there's witches like they thought there were witches that could lay a curse on someone and they would fall over dead? No.
What if there is? What if?
I'm going to be more polite to people, especially middle-aged and older ladies forever now on.
Yeah.
I'm always going to give up my seat on the bus.
I mean, but really, what if there is a dark energy that you can tap into, collect, and use for terrible reasons? I would go back to, if there are witches, I believe they're in politics.
Believe? Yeah, guaranteed.
Yeah.
I got a question. If you knew that there was this dark energy,
yes,
and you had the means to tap into it to fulfill your right now wish,
would I?
yes.
Easy answer, no. Easy answer, no.
That's a show, folks. I don't think we need to ask me any more questions. Okay.
Thanks for joining, guys.
All right. Read through these last comments. The media. Lori says the media has normalized it.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
My kids will never watch that movie. I won't watch that movie, and I doubt my kid will because he's 27. And, 27 is not,
He might, though. I mean, I've met him.
In the 70s, it was exposed that playing records backwards, you can hear the spells. There was...
that was part of the Satanic Panic era, yeah.
It was a big deal in the Satanic Panic area.
Yeah.
Symbology and rituals are in just about every movie and TV show. Yeah, well, remember we did the show on Led Zeppelin, and their symbology they did. They were real big into it, and they swore by it.
And I would say the symbology is alive and well with our elitists.
Sure.
You can't look up one of the elite and not see a picture of them like this or with the all-seeing eye. You just can't. They all do it. They do it
Let me ask you a question.
Professional pictures, everything.
If I start doing that stuff, will I suddenly become elite?
I don't think so. I don't think that's how it works.
Damn it. Anyways, the Beast Crowley was the biggest inspiration throughout the music and movie industry everywhere. You have a rock star, Aleister, is in the background. And that's another, we need to show on Aleister Crowley and his wizard war against the Nazis.
We need to, because we have done other shows on Aleister Crowley.
He is.
We did one on the Loch Ness.
Quite an interesting dude. Yes, evil, obviously.
I don't...
When you hear about some of the other stuff, Betsy, you won't even. I
don't think he's an actual wizard. I think he's just a creep.
Okay, yeah, I'd go with that. You can buy cursed objects, voodoo dolls, and books of spells. So yeah, you can find anything to do spells on eBay or Amazon. On Amazon, you can't find an eyeball of a newt.
Check eBay. eBay is the underground.
I will be on eBay. eBay's like
the back pages of merchant sales.
Back alley, Chinatown, where you buy the mogwai.
The mogwai.
I need to take the niece and nephews out to see that soon.
I made Grace watch it.
Did you? She love it?
She was like, "What is this?"
Did she like it?
She did.
Okay. She did. Show's classic. Great.
Classic.
All right, Lori says they are for sure. In the Bible, the devil said to Jesus, "Bow to me, I give you the kingdom of the world." maybe Jesus didn't portray that all the way because it creeped him out. But the devil might have said,
kiss the knot.
give it a kiss. Yeah. The devil's kiss. That's what we call that from now on. The devil's kiss.
And he was like, okay, I can't write that down.
Jesus is like, he goes back. You won't believe what he said, Peter. He said,
Peter's like, we got to make this more palatable.
he said, bow to me. He said, bow to you? Yeah, bow to me. That's what he said? Sure, let's go with that. You guys have a good week.
Have a great Halloween.
Yes, and
stay safe.
Next week we got Indigo Feather on.
I will not be here next week.
Yeah, Betsy probably, slight chance, but probably won't be here. Week after that, we've got a fun abductee coming on, and we'll get all that going. But Betsy has a busy time ahead of her, so if everyone could please put her in your thoughts.
Thoughts and prayers, please.
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you, Lori, and we will talk to you guys.